Hey Wargamers, today let's talk about Hammerhead Gunships and their special character version, Longstrike. Before we do that though, I want to say thanks for watching. If you like this video, go ahead, hit the like button and the subscribe button, as well as the notification bell. That way you don't miss any of my upcoming unit reviews, battle reports, or any other 8th edition content. Cool, so I have Index Xenos 2 here. Let's start with just the standard Hammerhead, and then we'll talk about Longstrike. So if you're only interested in Longstrike, skip ahead a few minutes, but yeah, let's get started. So, Hammerhead gunships are exactly that. They are gunships, and they're pretty good. They actually are a more efficient anti-tank option than the Storm Surge even. So, if you're looking at taking a Storm Surge or taking a couple of Hammerheads, I would tend actually towards taking a couple of Hammerheads. And we'll get into why that is later on here. But basically, the stat line for Hammerhead is variable movement, ballistic skill, and attacks. At full wounds, it has 12-inch movement, 3 up ballistic skill, and 3 attacks. Not that we care about the attacks at all, but that 3 up ballistic skill is really the important part there. It has a 6 up weapon skill, strength 6, toughness 7, 13 wounds, at leadership 8 with a 3 up save. So a fair number of wounds, decent save, pretty standard vehicle save there. But they have some durability to them, which is important. And then they come standard with 2 gun drones, and you have a few options with these guys. The first option, of course, is the big gun, and they can either come with a railgun, which is strength 10, minus 4 AP, doing D6 damage, and then if it's if you roll a 6, you get D3 mortal wounds in addition to that one. In addition to the D6 wounds that you do. And then you have the option to switch that out for an ion cannon, which has a standard profile of being heavy 3, strength 7, minus 2 AP, doing 2 damage. And then you can overcharge that to be strength 8 and do 3 damage. But of course, if you roll a 1, you get a mortal wound. And on units of more than 10, you get D6 instead of D3 on the overcharge. So really 2 separate niches there. You see the railgun as being this great weapon to take out vehicles, monsters, large multi-wound creatures. The railgun is going to be good, but the ion cannon has a bit more flexibility. It can do really respectable damage to those high toughness multi-wound models. It has that standardized damage output at 2 or 3, and has a respectable AP value and strength to it too. So the ion cannon can take out multi-wound models as well. It also is going to be better if you're facing an army that has a lot of infantry or a lot of multi-wound infantry. The ion cannon is going to be your better bet. But the railgun is really a powerhouse when it comes to taking out vehicles. So for that reason, I think you can go with either one. They're both going to be good options, and you should be happy with either. If you're looking at just a standard Hammerhead, I'm going to recommend taking an ion cannon, and we'll talk about why that is in a moment. But basically, the main reason is that for Hammerheads, Longstrike's going to take a railgun, and then your second Hammerhead is going to take an ion cannon. The other option that you have is your secondary weapons. You can switch your gun drones out for a smart missile system or burst cannons, but smart missile systems are pretty expensive, and burst cannons, there's absolutely no reason to take a burst cannon over the gun drones now. The gun drones themselves are cheaper than burst cannons. They have the same output. They can detach. There's just so much more flexibility associated with the gun drone than burst cannons. So really, I recommend just sticking with the gun drones on this, and that's pretty standard across all vehicles now for the Tau. Is gun drones are a really solid default option, and you should just stick with it. The only other option that you have with Hammerheads is to take a seeker missile, or 2 actually, and especially when you pair Hammerheads with Longstrike, seeker missiles are a great investment. And the reason is because once you get a couple marker lights on a target, you can use the firing platform's ballistic skill. That's going to be 3, at full wounds for a standard hammerhead, or 2 if you're firing from long strike or a near long strike, and again we'll talk about that in a moment. But a 2-up or a 3-up mortal wound is really good. You can't really beat that. So it's a few points for a seeker missile, but it's definitely worth it, and you should always take a couple seeker missiles on your hammerheads if you're going to be bringing them in the first place. So yeah, that's it. Right, so hammerheads, solid choice. They're going to be really good at taking out vehicles, multi-wound infantry. They're going to be a better option for vehicles than a storm surge even, and I like them as a basic gun line or fire base unit. They have a decent amount of mobility, being able to move 12. The changes to vehicles and moving and vehicles and shooting, everything like that, makes a hammerhead actually a really respectable choice, and I expect that you'll see them fairly commonly on the tabletop. So the thing that really makes hammerheads work, though, is long strike, and if you're ever going to bring hammerheads, you should always bring long strike, or you should just bring long strike. You should never just bring a standard hammerhead by itself. If you're going to bring just one hammerhead, it should be long strike. If you're going to bring 2, bring long strike and a normal hammerhead. Okay, so the only thing that makes Longstrike special on his stat line is that he has a 1 better ballistic skill. Otherwise, he's exactly the same. But his special rules are killer. So he has the Tank A special rule. It allows you to add 1 to wound rolls against vehicles or monsters. That means that the railgun's proccing ability, doing D3 additional mortal wounds, happens on a 5 or a 6. That means at least once a game, if you're firing this every turn, you should get a D3 mortal wound on your target. Right, so you have a 1 in 3 chance, and so at least once a game that should happen, which is awesome. So that's really good. Being able to add 1 to your wound roll is really valuable, and it's particularly important with the railgun because you only have 1 shot, and yes, it's strength 10, so some things are going to be wounding on 2s, but a lot of things are going to be wounding on 3s, and having that +1 to wound is really helpful. So that's critical for the single shot railgun that you have. The other special rule he has is Firecast Exemplar, and that allows you to add 1 to hit rolls for nearby friendly hammerheads, including himself. So that means that Longstrike can move and shoot at full ballistic skill, which is again awesome. You taking advantage of that 12-inch movement means that he can stay out of combat. It means that he can get to objectives. He can do a lot of stuff. He's very flexible in that way, and also means that those nearby hammerheads are now even better. So this is why I say take Longstrike with a railgun and take a standard hammerhead with a ion cannon, because the 2 together are going to do very well. Longstrike clearly has to take a railgun to really get the best out of that +1 to wound. And then the standard hammerhead, you can kind of build in a little bit more flexibility and take that ion cannon and really take advantage of that +1 to hit. And yeah, I think they're actually a really nice combo. They are not cheap, so the big weakness here is the points cost of the number of shots that you get. They're very good shots, they're high quality shots, but they're going to struggle if you just spam hammerheads. You're just not going to get that much out of it. Instead, you have to balance the hammerheads with other types of units. You want to have some redundancy for anti-tank and a lot more options for anti-infantry, and so I'd really only recommend taking 1 or 2 hammerheads in a 2,000 point list. If you do more than that, you're soaking a lot of points into too few shots, and you're not going to get very far with that. So overall, like I said, if you're going to take 1 hammerhead, take Longstrike with a railgun. If you're going to take 2 hammerheads, take Longstrike with a railgun, and then a standard hammerhead with the ion cannon, and you'll be all set. That second hammerhead could also be a railgun, but I like the flexibility of the ion cannon in general. So that's it. Like I said, I think they're really good options, and let me know how Hammerheads are working for you, if they're working out really well or very poorly. Either way, I'd love to hear about it. Thanks for watching, and of course, happy wargaming.